I would take 1,000 impressions on LinkedIn every day, above 100,000 on like an Insta reel, every single day of the week. We book a call for every 2,500 impressions on organic posting, which is wild. Inbound ones are so much high quality, they close really fast, I don't need to sell anything. It's just a different style of sales process entirely, and it makes life so much easier.
I mean, I say this to people, inbound sales calls are actually not sales calls, they're consultations. Welcome everyone to the Build in Public podcast. I've got one of my good friends on today, Aman, and perhaps before introducing him, maybe I'll just tell a little story about how we first met. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember one?
Yeah, I remember. It's good. It's a good story.
Okay. So we first met, we connected, I think, on LinkedIn. And in our first conversation, you were like, I've cracked the code for going viral on LinkedIn. And I was like, this sounds like I'm suspicious. I'm skeptical of this. And then I was like, all right, let's give it a try. You basically gave me the formula. I think I posted it same day. You gave me a couple of tweaks. Posted it same day. And then still to this day, that's probably my most viewed post on LinkedIn. We got like 500,000 impressions in like a couple of weeks. And I was like, wow, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. So since then, we've kind of been going back and forward on a bunch of strategies and stuff. But perhaps if you want to just give yourself a quick intro, what led you here today, that would be great.
100%. So my name's Aman, for everyone listening. I am the co-founder of a company called The Media Engine. And so we are a LinkedIn ghostwriting, setting, and growth agency. So context is, I'm like a growth hacker by trade. Like I've been growth hacking loads of stuff. And then when I found out that there's just so much potential wealth to acquire on LinkedIn and that it's basically an untapped vehicle, I went all in on around 2 years ago. So we work with 7-8 figure agencies, coaches, B2B consultants, and we help them basically grow on LinkedIn and then monetize. We have quite strong points of view on LinkedIn. I don't believe in like huge follower numbers or impression numbers. I'm super down to like, hey, if you just create niche content, you will make a lot of revenue purely because there's just so much revenue on LinkedIn available. And I also believe deeply in the power of personal brand. I think it's like one of the last moats we have left in a world where everything is becoming commoditized, saturated, and easily replicable. And so that's where we've landed on personal brands on LinkedIn, and where I will probably be for the future.
Love it. Love it. And I think LinkedIn would be a really good place to start the conversation because I think we see eye to eye on that. You mentioned at the start that you see that there's a really big opportunity in LinkedIn. Talk to me about that. Like what's different about LinkedIn versus other platforms?
Yeah. So we could like list out all the platforms if you think on top of your head. You've got Facebook, you've got Facebook and Insta put into one bucket. You got TikTok, you got YouTube, you got Twitter, you got LinkedIn. We've done all the channels. Like I've tested them all for B2B. Twitter used to be great. It's great for selling info and B2C consumer. It's kind of died off because Elon came in and basically broke the algo a little bit and it got saturated pretty quickly. So we did it for 2 years. I know exactly what happens on Twitter. We made revenue on Twitter. It just doesn't work that well anymore, except in very specific niches. Facebook and Insta work amazingly well, but you have to recognize that it's not really a B2B place. It's more of a B2C place. So if you want to do B2B on there, you've got to be very tactical and clever and have a whole funnel set up. It works, but it just requires a different type of work. Then you got YouTube. I think YouTube is amazing. I'm investing into YouTube now, but to create YouTube is like so much effort. It is create a video a week. That's like I think at most someone can do like 4 videos a month. That's like not a huge volume, but it is a lot of effort. And then right at the end, you got LinkedIn. And I'm like, cool. LinkedIn is really interesting. There's no other platform that has that much firmographic data. So you can literally see any person, qualify them within like 3 seconds. Are they the right company size, right job titles, etc.? So the amount of data you have is unparalleled. The next interesting thing is the mechanisms. It's a relatively like unabused platform, I'm going to say is like the best word. Like a lot of other platforms get abused quite fast and quite well. LinkedIn, I've abused it in various different ways, but it's still not that abused compared to other platforms. And what I mean by that is there's still so many marketing arbitrages that exist on LinkedIn that maybe I'm not even speaking about publicly, but they just exist and it's really easy to leverage them and get quick results. The other point is that it's still a young platform. And what I mean by that, it's immature in the sense that people aren't fully using it to its full leverage. So the content you see on LinkedIn, I still to this day, I don't think it's amazing content. I think it's much better than it was last year, the year before, but like the content quality, the level, it's so low that if you write pretty good content, you stand above the rest pretty quickly. And then the final point is the quality of the impressions is wildly high. Like I would take 1,000 impressions on LinkedIn every day above 100,000 on like an Insta reel, like every single day of the week. I have some data we picked up on a bunch of profiles that we run and we've seen public data for. We book a call for every 2,500 impressions on organic posting, which is wild. The biggest accounts that are in our niche are doing it every 40K impressions. But that's still a wildly small number. Even if you're doing it every 40K impressions to book a single call, that's really, really small. And so you can really begin to see that there is a very easy way to booking calls, drive qualified pipeline into your calendar without having to do much work. So there's like marketing arbitrage that exist. It's a low time investment to get the reward out. And there's no other place with that much firmographic data.
Super interesting. So what is the difference between an account that's booking calls for a few thousand impressions versus, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands impressions?
There's a few things that are happening. One is we always had the viewpoint that being niche is better. And that's because we did Twitter back in the day. So we understood, I had a Twitter ghostwriter like 80 years ago. And I learned a lesson very quickly that I can go viral and nothing changes to my bank account. So that lesson like years ago taught me a very big important thing that going viral is irrelevant and let's just be very niche all the time. So all my content is generally always going to be niche for like the rest of like whatever I do more or less, unless I'm being very careful about it. Because of that, our profiles that we built, like Paolo's profile that has like 8K followers, it's just been so targeted for every single post. We've just only ever spoken about meetings booked. And there's something very powerful in only speaking about the one thing that the market wants. And doing it so consistently that we've never cared if a post got 500 impressions. Sometimes we don't get like 3,000, 4,000 average, but like I've never cared if it was lower or higher. I just know it will pay off in the long run. The accounts that take more impressions to get there, I believe, fell into the vanity trap at some point. They were like, "Ooh, if I do carousels, I get more impressions." And so they did this game, which is fine, but it diluted the audience a little bit, which meant that they had it now takes more impressions to get the same calls booked. It might be the same amount of work. Like every post might get 40K impressions, like fair enough. But they definitely diluted their audience in the process. And it made it a little bit harder for them to monetize. I think there are various levels to this game. Like I think you should always start off niche and go really, really niche. And then if you need to broaden out, towards the end of your maybe like 1 mil plus ARR, 2 mil ARR, where you need to like open up brand more, you have a hiring problem now instead. I get why you open up to brand. But people have to open up brand and top funnel straight away from day one to chase impressions, I don't think make money. And you can see if you scroll LinkedIn, like there's any LinkedIn ghostwriter that gets like more than 30 likes. And then you go on their page and it's like, yeah, I've got one salon open. Like, you just know they're not making more than like 3 clients. You can just tell very quickly. But even though they've got like, 30 likes or 100 likes, whatever it is. So like, there's a really interesting play here. Just watch out for these like top funnel posts that don't do anything to bank account. We had another interesting data, but we had a client that went viral about a SaaS topic. We were running his account. And then he wanted to write some posts, like, yeah, go for it. We'll edit your post for you afterwards. So the post took off. He was like super happy. I'm like, yeah, cool. But just remember, this is not related to what you sell. And he's like, should I post it? I'm like, no, wait, it's still going viral. Like, let it rip, let it keep going. 200K version, 300K, 400K, now 700K, like crazy numbers. And then his message to me this morning was, I'm a bit concerned I haven't got a single lead. I'm like, I know you haven't got a single lead. You're not going to get a single lead. It's a top funnel post. But 700K impressions, not a single lead. I'm like, it's a really interesting lesson that you have to learn yourself as you do a big post and you're like, oh, wow, it didn't do anything to the back end. So there's a few answers there, but ultimately it's like, don't chase the vanity metric. It doesn't correlate with revenue and everyone keeps doing it too early.
Yes. So interesting. I've probably fallen into that trap, to be perfectly honest. And so how do you think about like what's working right now? How do you think about that split between, what you call in top of funnel, which is about reach, impressions, versus probably the sort of more mid and bottom funnel, which is like generating meetings and actual revenue for a company?
Yeah. So there's a few things that are going on the algo right now. If you do a top funnel post and then a bottom funnel the day after, your bottom funnel gets more reach. It's like, that's the only reason why I would do it. Is I'm like hacking a little bit. So I want to do the top funnel first. Let's say it performs 1.5x above average. And then I do my bottom funnel straight after. And that bottom funnel will get a little bit more reach, which is nice to see. That's the only reason why we do top funnel. I also do top funnel for hiring. So if I need to hire and I need to get applicants in the door, we write posts that appease to what applicants want to see. And it generally tails off better if you talk about how top funnel and stories and lives, because then they come in for that reason. So the only reasons I do top funnel is one, to boost a bottom funnel the day after, or to attract hiring.
Got it. Okay. So you're not even thinking how many new followers you're getting or impressions or anything like that?
If we track impressions, which is interesting. We track impressions on a daily basis for all our clients and a weekly, but we're just checking if we're above or below average. I'm not that concerned if like a post did badly, because I know if I write a post a certain way, it will do badly. It will get less impressions. Like I know that for a fact, and we have to educate clients sometimes. Like, look, this will not be more impressions, but there's a reason for it, and this is the reason. Like, I put in the hook the ICP name, so I'm disqualifying half your audience. We have some clients that are, they used to write very technical content. So let's say they are a Facebook advertiser, and they used to write about like how to do ad attribution and how to do UTMs, all this sort of like, deep stuff. And they get loads of likes. I'm like, great, but that's like, you can see who's liking this content. Now, when I put a post to like CEOs and decision makers, you won't get impressions. And again, that's because your audience wasn't full of that type of person. So therefore, the impressions will fall off. So we track impressions. I just want to check if it's above or below average, but it's not my North Star at all.
Yeah. It's so true as well that so many of your best clients that come from LinkedIn, they might have never engaged with your content at all.
They don't.
They're like, I have people that come to me after maybe 2 years of being connected. They've never engaged with any of my content, and they turn into a client that we work with for years and years. So it's fascinating that, but it's so hard to not get caught in the trap of who's engaging with my content, who's liking my content, how many impressions am I getting, and so.
Yeah. So like we did this. I'll give you some even more like really interesting data. We set up a bunch of scrapers, so I could scrape every LinkedIn post, commenters, likers, profile viewers, I could scrape like every bit of public available data, chucked it into an Airtable, did CRM scoring, like if you liked more than 3 times +2, if you commented, like try to do all this stuff. What I found, and then I had my setter go through and like qualify, unqualified or qualified, like on every name that had like a high score. The people that had high scores were unqualified. Like the metrics that you're publicly viewing as a like or a commenter aren't correlated to the people that you can send, warm DMs to, which is so interesting because it's scary, because now how do I like do outbound setting? Because now you have less data to flow onto. But 2, it's like really funny because there's a bunch of people that are on LinkedIn posting about how they can scrape followers, send an outbound message, like book lots of meetings. Like, yeah, I get it, but I don't think there's a huge correlation between the 2. I think there's a bunch of more revenue sitting that you just can't see, unfortunately. And you just like you got to do very good posting to elicit them to come inbound to you, or watch for their profile pieces. Not all the public metrics that you can see are actually going to be correlated to the revenue, which is very unfortunate and makes the job a bit more harder.
So are you optimizing for inbound, like people reaching out to you?
100%. We want to optimize for inbound. Our best deals always are inbound. Like I had one of my setters was working on my account and just like booking calls. I'm like, just book. Show me what you can book. And most of the books were coming like unqualified. But the guys, there was another account, we have Paolo's account, it was like just focus on the inbounds. Like to anyone that comes and just assist them through the funnel, maybe book like 3 or 4x less calls, like times. But the inbound ones are so much high quality. They close really fast. I don't need to sell anything. The budget's already there. it's just a different style of sales process entirely, and it makes life so much easier. Like I've got worse at sales. It's really bad because I haven't had to sell so well. And then I had to I remember when I started the app, I need to bring a sales coach on. I've forgotten how to sell. I need to retrain again very quickly. So inbound for sure, all the way.
Yeah, we're exactly the same. I mean, I say this to people, inbound sales calls are actually not sales calls. They're consultations.
Exactly.
You're not actually having to sell anything.
I'm just giving strategy. I'm like, look, this is what we do. Here's how you can do it. This would work really well for you. Go give it a try. They're like, yeah, I don't want to do it. Just do it for me. I'm like, great, cool, sorry. We're on the right track.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we found. Just give everything away. And ultimately there'll be a percentage of people that take that and implement it, and hopefully they get really good results from it. But then the majority will probably want some support, whether it's a kind of consulting engagement or whether it's literally going in and kind of doing everything for them.
Exactly.
Love that. I'd like to go on to a topic now of micro offers.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I want to talk about this is I've got a bit of a vested interest in this as well, because I am of the belief, and I don't think the world has quite caught up with this yet. I'm not sure if the world's prepared for this yet, but I am of the belief that it won't be long before sales calls are not needed at all. Meaning people, like we talked about the inbound, I sometimes get this feeling, and I don't do many of our sales calls anymore, but I sometimes get this feeling when I was on them where they're ready to, as soon as you join the call, they're ready to buy from you. They've seen so much of your content, they've been through a video sales letter, et cetera, et cetera. They understand your philosophy and your approach, and they're ready to buy. And it's almost like the sales call is just a routine that we have to go through, because you have to have a sales call because it's B2B and blah, 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 blah. And then, at the end, we get them signed up and so on and so forth. So I believe there's a world coming quite soon where people will just buy something from you and they actually won't need to speak to you. And we've been testing out something that I've seen you talking about, and I haven't really seen many people talking about it, which is this idea of a micro offer, or, a mini product, which is the first step in the process of working with you. And for context, what we've been doing is a workshop, basically. So it's a strategy workshop, 2 to 3 hours long, help them figure out their market message and the go-to-market strategy. And that used to be just part of our offer. That
the onboarding stage, I'm guessing.
Correct. You'd have to become a partner and probably pay us, thousands of pounds a year to get access to that workshop. And what we've realized is that actually you can just have that as a first step. And then ultimately, if you decide to execute the plan together, that gets credited forward towards the sort of longer term campaign. So it's just a win-win for everyone. And we've sort of been testing, will people buy this from us without speaking to us? And we've had a couple of people who have basically got there, but we haven't actually had anyone who's gone to the, seen the content, gone to the landing page, pulled out their credit card, paid us a couple £100, and then jumped on the call. So anyway, I'd just be interested in your thoughts in general about micro offers and whether there is a world where there's no sales calls.
It's a really interesting point. Let me put it on my back burner brain for 2 minutes, and I'll come to it. So I need to let it digest a little bit behind me. But I can talk a bit about micro offers and how I think about them. I think is a very similar way to you. So I'll say what the market problem is and why I think micro offers are needed in the market. The market problem is that people are tighter on budget a little bit, in my opinion, and there's a bit more saturation. And so people are a bit more skeptical to put down 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever K it is on an offer. And the people that have budget are becoming a bit of a smaller percentage now. So what we're seeing is a bit more unqualifieds coming through the door. We're okay, how do we serve unqualifieds? I could either, reduce my qualification metric and then maybe have a better churn rate, or maybe I can create a new product. And that's where it came to how do you create a new product that has a good churn, doesn't have a churn rate, but still serves the people that maybe it couldn't have been served by the full done for you or product afterwards. The other thing that was coming from it was everyone is selling the same recurring service. Everyone's selling paid ads management. Everyone is selling SEO retainers. And the issue is that you find it very hard to differentiate yourself. And when a buyer's company, they're who do I buy from? They're almost just comparing bullet points at that point, or maybe comparing trust, and it's a bit difficult. So the question was, how do you differentiate without changing the done for you at the back end? So in markets where you're like saturated, commoditized, I believe a micro offer is really valuable because you can come out with something that's a bit unique, that's very low friction to buy, and that builds trust. And most importantly, can be sold without you pushing out the previous agency. So most of the time when you're selling to someone, they actually have an incumbent solution, whether it's an agency or a freelance, whatever it is, there's an incumbent solution. By having a micro offer, they don't have to change much about their behavior and their other spending patterns for the value of micro offer. So you're able to get in the door really easily. And once you're in the door, the upsell chance is much higher. Like you're going to like, you either going to upsell this month, you're going to upsell like whatever, like you're trusted now in the organization. So that's the reason for a micro offer. It's like, to get through the door, to differentiate, to work on an upsell faster. So for me, that personally works really well on e-com paid ads. Like that's probably one of the most saturated niches that I see. And they all need more micro offers and they need to give more value to the market first because right now they can't, there's just not enough e-com brands to take away from right now. Our micro offers are like various versions of like done with you and down sells, like one-time offers and workshops. In a similar sense to you, just to like get the needle moving and get the momentum on the deal. Do I think that they can be sold without needing to ever speak to me? I think so if the ticket price is low enough. And I have sold like 2K, 3K over Google Docs. And like there's a whole community of people that sell over Google Docs. And like we learned from that one, like that's really interesting. Let's try that a go. And it does work to a degree. But there are some people that I think just want to know that you're real. And I don't know how much that can be automated or given away. And the second you said like, oh, we do this, you said we do the sales call. And it's like, we're just doing the B2B sales process. And I thought in my head, I was like, oh, it's just like a song and a dance, isn't it? Like we're just singing and dancing for the person. And in my head, I was thinking about, these like mating videos of like birds dancing for each other, like an Attenborough. And I'm like, they know they're going to mate. They know they're going to do it, but they got to do the process. And maybe it's the fact of doing the process that earns the right to sell. I don't know what the reason is, but maybe there's like a deeper reason why you need to like be a bit subservient to allow for the sale to happen. I don't know.
I think that's really interesting. Yeah, I feel that we're kind of caught a little bit between a rock and a hard place at the moment with it. Just to be clear, it's actually working really, really well. And I think like it's a really easy kind of buy-in for people. The feedback that we get from the workshops, even if they don't end up becoming a long-term partner right away, is really, really good. So people seem to love them. And we've got referrals from people who have like literally just had a workshop and then they're like, oh, I know someone else that needs this. So that's working really well. But we're kind of in this place at the moment where I think we either need to charge less for it if we don't want to do sales calls, or we need to charge more for it if we are doing the sales call. Because we've kind of underpriced it at the moment, in my opinion. So I mean, I could just give you the numbers. We're charging, full price will be £597, and we've got a like early bird at the moment because we've just launched it for £497.
Yeah,
which in my opinion is really undervaluing actually the
cheap
workshop.
Your hourly rate's probably like 500 anyway. So you're like, it's probably it's probably 30% off regardless. It's 60% off, probably even more.
Yeah. So my sense would be either we make it less and don't have a sales call, or we keep the sales process and probably like double the price
to make it
1.7 or something like that. Because otherwise I just spend my whole time on workshops, which I do, to be honest, enjoy doing. But then if I can charge, like if it's beneath my typical hourly rate, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's going on in my head at the moment.
Yeah, it's like, I guess you want us to model it out and see if it's like worth the loss leader and worth the upsell rate and all that sort of stuff. But you're right, like there is like this hard rock between like, is it worth doing the sales call for it or not? Because you got to pay and then sales costs money as well. It's a hard one. You got to test it out. That's fun, though. A good problem to have.
Totally, it's a good problem to have for sure.
I wonder.
Okay, awesome. Let's shift gears a little bit away from LinkedIn for the time being. I'd just be quite interested in your general thoughts in terms of the B2B marketplace and what has changed when it comes to growth. If we look at maybe the last 3 to 5 years, like what are the big differences there?
Oh, it's interesting. I think the biggest thing is trust. It's probably the most like the main thing. Like I think everything stems from that. Like trust has gone down in the marketplace, and as a result, we're having to do more marketing to build that trust, and we need to be more intelligent about the marketing we're doing. Like it's like the very like big high level problem that I see. As a result, I believe we're having to go less demand capture, more demand gen. We have to go a bit higher up and a bit earlier in the journey. I know of lots of companies that are mainly to say demand capture in the sense of like we do SEO and we do Google search ads, and they print a lot of money from like just capturing whoever's in market, winning 30% of deals, like just above average close rate, etc. And I believe that these guys are struggling a little bit more now because quality of those deals come lower. There's more competition. Everyone knows that tactic. So like everyone's jumping in, increasing the CPMs. Like it gets a little bit harder to do the whole demand capture piece now because it's just so easy to spin up an ad campaign or just so easy to do all those bits. The more interesting bit is like if you just go like one level up, just like maybe like problem aware as opposed to being like solution aware, bottom funnel, you access this bit of the market which is like kind of underserved, I'd say. That needs a bit more creative messaging. There's more creativity in that space allowed, which means there's more arbitrages available for you to play with. What I mean by that is like if you go too far to the bottom, you're just competing on like the deliverable and the price. If you just go a little bit higher up, you're competing on like who you are, what you serve. Like there's a little bit more involved in the decision making. So I think B2B marketing has changed a bit in the sense that because there's so many competitors that come in to the bottom and they all want to like harvest, if you just go slightly up a little bit, it works. There's a bit more open space for you to play with. That's like the general level. And therefore trust is a bit higher there as well because you're not competing with a bunch of players.
Interesting. And how do you actually do that in practice? How do you go higher up in the funnel?
Yeah, so it's what we do instead of like you write LinkedIn posts instead of running Google search ads. There's like an element of that. Unless you're like local lead gen, like you can do the Google search ads, but like unless you're like big, like go into where people are hanging out on social and put out messaging in front of them that resonates with them and that they agree with and that like, compels them to do some action. It means doing micro offers because that's like a little bit earlier than the solution. It means doing done with yous. It means finding a way to create momentum in a relationship before they need the full service. It means running ads on paid social that are more video and more educational as opposed to like buy this 5997 product, which I'm sure maybe you do that on the retargeting layer, but maybe not on the cold front layer because that's not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know this from chats we've had, but we've really leaned heavily into the sort of demand building, demand gen approach. And we basically do very little capturing of demand now. So like probably 80 to 90% of our time and energy is spent on how do we build our own demand? How do we create customers out of thin air with our demand building kind of demand gen process? And what we found is that it's almost like you're kind of filling up a bank account. And every time you try and capture some demand, you're like taking a withdrawal from the account. And it's such a change in philosophy because everyone wants to generate leads. Everyone's like, how do I? Yeah, but they're in my retargeting ads, but I don't know who those people are. Like, how do I get their email addresses? And it's like, no, don't worry, they'll come to you. They're just doing the buying journey without you. And I think that people are really uncomfortable about that. But we're very similar to you guys. Like, we ran experiments in our own business. We had like 2 to 3 months of running a sort of very lead gen focused demand capture campaign with like an opt-in and a video sales letter and like a giveaway to book a call and all that kind of stuff. And we booked tons of calls and we generated tons of leads, but the actual revenue that we generated at the end was less than when we just switched to demand gen, took out all of our opt-ins, took out anything that like any friction at all in terms of the capturing process. We had something like a third of the number of sales calls. We generated more revenue.
Wow.
So it's like, it's so much more efficient for us personally. And it's not, maybe it doesn't work for everyone. But that was such an eye-opening moment for me. Really at the turn of the year of 2024, and we're like, right, I'm going all in on demand gen now.
Interesting. It's wild. It's like, I think I've said this sort of thing, but like not to the like in this podcast, but not to the extreme that you're saying it. If that makes sense. Someone like, yeah, just go top funnel. But I'm not saying like go all the way to like just go like not go top funnel, like go demand gen, don't gate anything. Like that's really interesting. And it like hypothetically and theoretically will make sense, and you're seeing the results from it. So that's awesome. Like, yeah, don't delay the ask; you get a bigger ask at the end of the day.
You hope so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we still do. We'll do. It's very soft. So if we post on LinkedIn, comment to get a copy of the Figma file or whatever.
Yeah.
But even that, I'm wondering whether maybe just remove that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know some people that do remove it entirely, and it like works. There is like a full play there.
Yeah, it's a bit like jumping off a diving board. Like you have to be. There's those few seconds where you're like, "Am I going to hit the water?"
Yeah. But it's not even a few seconds. It's like a good month. I don't know about your like time frame to like see the results, but what I can tell you, for example, from our profile is that this is a very small test we did. It was a kind of a forced test. So we scaled the biz. We did really well. We hit capacity. We did to hire a bunch of people. I'm like, cool, let's shift all our post to hiring posts so that we can just fill our pipelines up. Did that for 30 days, 45 days. I'm like, crap, we have capacity. We need to hire, we've got the increased cost. We need to go get more clients again. Let's change it all to lead mag, sales, authority building, all that sort of stuff. It took us 30 to 45 days to get back ramped to our 2 calls a day mark. And we have a perfect profile in the grand scheme of things. So it still took us 30 to 45 days to ramp up. And we had everything good. So the question is, what would it take if you have everything cold? Like nothing is like already there. Like that's going to take a much longer time to come into it. And for me, it was like, it was a good lesson for me to learn. So like, I need to educate my clients. Like this, if you have nothing going for the beginning, you need to like, you need to believe this will take time. But it does work. But there is a commitment, like a diving board you got to jump off of. Basically what you said there, where you need to like commit to this journey.
100%. I mean, I would say it's at least 3 months really to see a proper impact. But this also kind of comes into the conversation about paid on LinkedIn, which is obviously something that I'm a huge believer in. But I think what's interesting is it's probably allowed me to be a little bit lazy about the quality of the content. So I feel like you've really gone the direction of like just making sure the content is like killer, doing exactly what it needs to do. And potentially for me, I maybe rely a little bit on the ads.
Yeah.
So I'd just be interested in your perspective on paid on LinkedIn at the moment, if you do it or if you have any opinions on it.
I do a little bit of paid, not much. So I think my viewpoint on being like heavy on organic is not entirely correct all the time, because we create a lot of content. Like we are like churning our meals a lot to create content. Like we're creating 20 posts for every client, everyone. Like we're doing like hundreds of posts a week. Like our team is like pushing out, and they're very high quality. But that's like a lot of work to spin. And like now we're like, how do we? And there was this podcast with Greg Eisenberg. Like he does like this business called like Late Checkout. Like awesome. He's like, it was a snippet of him talking to a guy that runs a bunch of Facebook funnels for a company called AJ Smart. And they were basically saying like, someone was bragging to them saying that, oh, I only do organic. And he's like, what do you mean you do that? That's dumb. Why would you only do organic? Like it pays like this huge distribution. He's like, why would you be that naive and like, egotistical, whatever the word is, or I don't know the exact phrase. Like, so paid is like, even though we do a lot of organic, I want to do more paid because I do believe that there's leverage in paying for media as opposed to having to fight for the impressions on every post in some senses. In terms of like LinkedIn performance, again, we don't do a bunch of paid or too much of it, but it's just like killer. Like the quality of the impressions you're getting are just ridiculously high, and the targeting is so good on LinkedIn. Again, because of this reasons of like firmographic day and all the other reasons I said before. If you're going to do paid anywhere and you're selling B2B, it's got to be LinkedIn with like maybe Facebook retargeting or something going on there. But like my predominant work would be on LinkedIn almost in every scenario.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. You should explore it. I think we'll convince everyone to get into it. But I think basically the way I think about it is Because what really doesn't work well is kind of what we talked about, which is like that lead gen funnel on LinkedIn. Like you see a lot of, especially big companies, they'll run like an ad which is like a PDF white paper, and it's like a lead gen ad. So you like put your LinkedIn details in to get it. I don't think that produces quality sales consultations and quality revenue. But what does work really well is just to basically take what is working well for you already and just boost it. And especially if you're looking at the retargeting, you get a lot of leverage from that. So you can just take your best posts and obviously strategically kind of push them to people at the right points in the funnel. So yeah, definitely consider it, especially if you want to kind of, when you're in your next sort of scaling cycle.
Yeah.
It will be sort of rocket fuel, I think you can add to it.
Yeah, we're looking at Facebook right now. We're looking at LinkedIn. We're trying to make decisions about like who we want to speak to. Do we want to go broader? Do we want to go more specific? Like we're having all these discussions right now. I think the other thing about LinkedIn ads is like people don't know this little, but you can edit your post after, like you do an organic post. You can edit, it gets a bunch of likes. You can edit it and then you can run it as a thought leader. Like that's wild. Like when I went at that, I know last year, I'm like, this is so crazy because in Facebook, if you do a post, that's it. It's done. It's fixed. It's permanently. You can't change that thing. But to be able to change a post after it's got engagement, and you can do whatever you want to it, that's like a crazy thing to think about. And there's like so many hacks that immediately open up in my mind, which I haven't have used yet either. But like, there's so much you can do there.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
One of the topics we wanted to cover, and we haven't talked about this before today. I don't know how much detail we'll be able to go into. But one of the things we talked about previously was the idea of this done with you versus done for you kind of approach, and the offers that you see people structuring. I think you said you had a couple of pointers or maybe even a couple of questions on it, and maybe we step back and forward for a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll go high level on this. So when we sell a done for you offer, there has to be a bunch of inputs that look correct for the output to come in 3 months. Like the sausage factory has to like operate a certain way. So they got to come in and they got to look a certain way. They got to have a certain amount of brand. They got to have a certain offer. Like whatever those things are, they got to be true. So that when I push them through our service, and we can adapt the service at points, but we push them through the service, they still get some like tangible result and they're happy at the end of it. Now, when the inputs are incorrect, because either we haven't qualified well enough or because we weren't aware of that was a really important input, sometimes the results don't come for 3 months. They take like 6 months to come for. And that's a bigger burn on the company. Like the company now has to spend more money through that testing period. And this is why like people are unhappy with agencies. It's not because agencies are bad. It's like they're coming in with different inputs and we need to control that. And so then we were seeing a bunch of scales calls. I'm like, look, I can't sell to everyone here. I can't close everyone here because they just don't look the exact way that my system works with. But they would get results if they're able to just adapt a little bit. And because adapting our organization to fit a bunch of inputs is really difficult. Like that's like, as a business, that's like very hard to do. That means you're running around, changing things all the time. It's not a good idea. But what if the adaptation can happen on the client side? And they can do that little bit of learning because we can educate them and then they can fix themselves and then they can go through the system afterwards. So we end up creating this like done with you downsell, which is like, hold on, we'll still strategically help you with the high value bits that correlate to outcome. So like the offer correlates to outcome. I can help you with that 100%. I can make sure that's like dialed in for LinkedIn. We can like write your hooks for you because that's like needs to be right to dial in for LinkedIn. We could edit your posts afterwards, like the posts are going out well. But can I necessarily like write your whole body and interview you every month? I don't know because you're different to what everyone looks like. So the done with you downsell for us was created to service people that didn't look the exact way, but should deserve and can still get results. And our methodology does work, but I'm not going to shift my whole business to serve for that one type of person. So that's what the thinking was. And then we realized, done with you is really profitable. Like if I do this service, like I'm not doing much work. I'm giving the high leverage work, let's say, but the execution, which is where like the margin goes for the agency, is being done by the client now. So like, this is really interesting. I'm like, okay, this is basically the coaching course model, whatever. We're slowly getting to this model over here. And I didn't want to become like just selling courses because I don't think that helps people get results. Essentially, have this done with you. I'm like, we're heavily involved in the client at several points to make sure that we're still going through the machine in the right way, let's say. So the question when I messaged you, I'm like, how do you, and I know you had various offers, like how do you manage them all? How do you correctly route people to the place? And what makes more for a scalable business model that like serves you as a business owner? Because you're like, the business owner needs to be like make profit. It's like, we're not here to serve the clients all the time. We still need to serve ourselves. So that's like where I was like, my brain is in the mode of thinking. Hence why this micro offer discussion came up, like, what is the way to serve people is what I'm trying to get to here.
100%. We had a very similar process, and kind of, I think I probably made all the mistakes in the book here. So and everything we do is around that perspective of how do we serve our clients and how do we make sure that they get results. What I noticed with that, so obviously we started our business as an SEO agency, and we've kind of evolved over time to being what we refer to now as a growth partner, which is a much more holistic approach. But the problem with that, if we're doing everything for everyone, it becomes a huge kind of burden on our side. And so we have to price very high. It's a premium, very premium offering. And, you're not going to get us as a partner unless you're paying us thousands of pounds a year. Like, there's going to be probably a big setup fee, probably thousands of pounds per month in retainer. And then a lot of our deals have a performance element to them as well. And that's just prohibitive for a lot of companies. And it's a really good value exchange because you're getting a whole marketing team. And I have a big kind of, my perspective is all around, I think it really, I'm a big believer in having the sort of senior level practitioners being the ones who are actually on the tools doing the work, rather than kind of, I sell someone something and then it's like a junior account manager who doesn't really know what they're talking about, kind of actually doing the service. But then again, if you're going to get those experienced people, it's going to come with a price tag. So the difficulty is like it's more expensive for people, and B, the number of clients that we can serve is pretty limited. We can't partner with that many companies at a time. And I noticed this in my SEO agency, which we've now kind of absorbed into really part of the service, although we still separate the brands slightly. But we got to a certain level, it's like 20 to 30 clients. Kind of realized, like, if we were going to go to 50 to 100 clients on that basis, the service level would drop. Like, there's just no way that the service level would not drop. And I wasn't really interested in running a business like that. And that's where the idea of B2B came from. And that started as done with you only. Consulting people and helping them with their growth strategy and stuff. But then I realized the problem with that is that a lot of people just need help with execution. Like, they just can't actually put it into practice. So that's where we are now, is we basically have our highest sort of level of engagement is something we call a growth partnership, which is almost entirely done for you. And, we're very, very selective who we take on. It's invitation only. We don't actually really talk about it publicly. We then have a done with you offer, which is basically, we're calling it an accelerator, which is pretty classic, but it's basically, here's all of our IP, work with us one-on-one. So it's not a course or kind of coaching program. It's a consulting engagement where we'll work with you one-on-one. But the only sort of line in the sand is that we're not going to be doing stuff for you. So we're not going to be actually in your ad account running your ads or, creating your marketing assets. We'll help you do it and give you everything you need to do it yourself. And the benefit there is that it's, from our perspective, it's a lot less of our time and energy. So we can really drop the price point quite a lot, but it still can be profitable for us. And then on the client side, they get to work with us and kind of follow our proven process without having to, fork out for this kind of larger price tag. And I think the other benefit is it's like that sort of teaching people how to fish versus bringing them fish is like, I think you could argue it's more valuable, but where I've seen it fall down is where if people don't execute well, that's the challenge, because you need to make sure that people are still getting results. But that's where we've sort of ended up now. So it's like hybrid consulting, and then a more sort of done for you agency offer, which is like our highest ticket.
Yeah. I think we've sort of done it the same way, sort of. So like, let's say your SEO agency was like our credit, like our done for you LinkedIn ghostwriting agency. We grew it like hit. So I think we have similar numbers like 20, 30. Like, oh, hold on, how do I serve more without making this worse? And how do I serve better? And the answer is like either go for a volume play and then reduce the service delivery, which is like a thing that people do and it's fine and it serves most of the market, or like go for higher value clients, higher performance deals, more work in, also fine. Or where's this like hybrid offer, which is like, hey, done with you, drop the price point, do a bit of both. There's like merit to all three. I also had this like other angle, which is like the done for you acts as the case study flywheel, because the done with yous will take longer to get case studies because you're not executing it. There's less momentum, but you still need the case studies to fuel your business. So like I see the done for you as like keeping the done for you allows you to flywheel the case study faster to fuel your marketing. And then it helps you get better IP to push into the done with you. Like that's how I was like seeing the model.
I agree. I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's certain people in the kind of guru, like online guru space. There's one guy in particular who's very big on LinkedIn. And I've had a few of our customers who have gone through his sort of offers and programs. And I think the difficulty is that he's basically only doing like the sort of DIY. So either do it yourself. So as in like, I'll give you a course and you have to implement it. Or done with you, which is like, I'll give you a course and I'll help you implement it. And I think that the trouble is that people struggle to get results on that basis if you're not doing any done for you. And so you do kind of end up in this world, I think, where you're constantly having to market because you're just signing lots of clients, probably not charging them very much, just be like this volume, you're getting lots of people in the door. But if like 80 to 90% of them aren't getting any results at all, then it could be difficult. That's not the kind of business that I want to run.
No, I get you completely. I think, okay, here's the flag here's how you can notice these people. So like as a buyer, you have a feeling about certain people. You're like, no, this is a bit weird. My signal to people that are buying from those types of solutions is look at the variability of the case studies. If the case studies are showing the same person week in, week out, it's because there's not many case studies. And therefore, people aren't getting results. So if this person's selling a lot of revenue, but the case studies are always the same, therefore it's broken. And that's how you can see from the outside what's going on. And so with this sim, I don't know them. I don't think the market is sophisticated enough to understand that fact. And they will only learn it over time because they need to become aware of what's happening to have sold the solution. But that's why we like to have variability in our case studies. I'm like, I need to show a range because I want to prove to the market this does work across a few different things here. This isn't just like only this type of business gets that type of result. Look how much meetings he booked, move on. Like, I think that's like a very clear red flag. And if you are aware of who you're buying from, that is the red flag you can look for very easily. That can stop you being almost buying the wrong solution.
Interesting point. Yeah, really interesting point. And then I think the other side of the coin is that, and this is another thing I've noticed, which is why we don't do done for you for everyone, is sort of to your point, which is actually a lot of the times people have problems in their business that are not related to marketing.
Yeah.
And so what happens with done for you is people just expect you to just like solve all the problems in their business. And often like there's some like, and usually it's the founder in my experience. Usually they're like a bit too ADD, or they're like, there's a problem with delivery because they're controlling everything or something like that. But that's one of the challenges is as an agency and as a marketing company is not all businesses can cope with marketing, and there will be other problems that kind of rise to the surface.
100%. I think that's why I mentioned about that. That's what I was thinking about when I was saying inputs are different. Like they just look slightly different, and it starts as little things like I want to change this thing about the engagement with you, And it seems like a really small thing, but it balloons and it has ramifications across everything. And it's like, this doesn't actually work anymore. And again, sometimes, yeah, like, look, the market's harder. Like the market shape, like we are, I think there's a assumption that we're marketing when we post products, post our case studies, our solutions, what we do. When people view it, they view it under the assumption that the market's not going to change in 3 to 6 months, but it is going to change and you need to adapt. And that IP needs to move as well. So like there's an element of like everything is moving all the time. And on the done for you basis, the buyers kind of forget that the market's moved sometimes. And like things are a little bit harder than before, or things are a little bit easier, or like you need to shift the positioning a little bit because like 100 competitors just came in the market and just like absolutely blitzed the platform or whatever happened.
So true. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, mate. We'll have to do this again. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
For sure. So you can go on LinkedIn, and I'm sure David will put the links below, but you can go Paolo's profile or my profile or the mediaengine.co. You can just view our content. Also started on YouTube recently. You can check that out as well. YouTube is very fun and very tiring, but check me out there as well.
Legend. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.